Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Offseason podcast. Yet again, I'm Hunter, joined this week by just Trevor because Brody abandoned us to go to Hawaii.
It can't be any nicer there than it is here.
I would agree, based on your beanie and warm flannel choice.
That's all right. I just like to be warm. It's 80 degrees out.
Do you remember, this isn't the first story, but do you remember that time Brody had a golf trip to Hawaii and we got people to spam his comments being like,
oh no,
saying
dude.
something about Hawaii's not that nice or whatever?
We shouldn't even mention this story because it's not gonna end well.
We just did, we thought it was funny, and so on Griplock we got people to like spam his comments, something about like Hawaii's not that cool, something like that. And then we got a text from Brody. He's like, "Hey, the comments,
Hunter, you do realize what you're doing right now is going to incite people to do the exact same thing."
No,
yes,
because they're going to hear this next part, which is Brody texted us. Was like, the comment spamming was like funny and all, but we're down here for a brand deal, so that doesn't exactly like help. I was like, "Oh shoot!" So we like got everyone to stop doing it. It was just a funny.
Well, I hope our listeners have a conscience, because if I were them, anyways,
they're not going to do it.
Okay.
if you enjoy seeing Brody be able to go to Hawaii, then they won't do it. We're not asking them to do it. I'm asking them not to do it. I just was reminded of that this morning. I thought it was hilarious.
Terrible idea.
I thought it was funny. I just reminded of that this morning.
It was a funny story, but I'm just saying, terrible idea to bring that up on air. You are going to regret that in a few hours.
I don't think so.
Okay.
He pulled up on his story in like this little yellow bug. Did you see that?
Very funny.
Yeah. Man. It looks like you have a great time.
It looks like a great time. For now.
The first story this week comes from Jake Maddie. He said, I was playing disc golf with my brother and his friend at a course I'd only ever played once before, a year earlier. For context, I was in a completely different state than where I live. On the first hole, I shanked my tee shot OB to the right of the fairway, roughly 50 feet across a gravel road marked OB. When I found my disc, there was another disc near it. Both were well OB, right of hole one's fairway, but the OB wasn't so thick that neither disc was hard to find, so I assumed someone had thrown a similar shot and forgotten to pick it up because they threw a second tee shot like I did and forgot to go get their first disc. I picked the disc up and immediately called the number on the back. No answer. I left a voicemail saying I just started my round, so I'd be at the course for another couple hours if they were still there or wanted to come back, and my group and I finished out the hole and then went to the next tee where I asked the group in front of us if it was one of theirs, assuming they could have just left it a few minutes ago. It wasn't theirs. As we were ready to tee off on hole 2, 2 other guys came up from behind us asking if we had found their disc. You could tell they were mad. I said, yes, I found it back on the last hole, called you, left a voicemail. The owner of the disc goes, oh, I missed your call. Thanks for returning my disc. I gave him the disc back and thought the interaction was over. Instead, his friend started to cuss me out and yell at me, asking why I had picked up a disc in the first place. He was yelling that I shouldn't be picking up other people's discs on the course, claiming that because the two fairways were next to each other, I shouldn't be picking up discs and assume someone else was still playing from that spot. Turns out they had been finishing up their round on one of the final holes played in the opposite direction of hole 1, and the fairways were next to each other. Only problem is their fairway was off to the left side of hole 1, and if you remember, I had thrown OB to the right side of hole 1. They had not only thrown off of their fairway, but all the way across the fairway of hole 1 and then into the OB that I had thrown into. I tried to explain this to the friend, but he continues to cuss me out. I probably should have just left it, told him he was right, but I didn't back down and told him that if the owner of the disc didn't want me to pick up his disc, he probably shouldn't have thrown such a bad shot to where I would think the disc was lost. This sent the friend over the edge, and he began to approach my group and ask if we wanted to fight. Remember, this wasn't even his disc I'd picked up. Just when I thought I was actually about to get into a fist fight over a disc, my brother and his friend stepped between us and broke it up. What do you think? Was I right to think the disc was lost and pick it up, or should I have left it where it was, assuming someone was still playing from this? After this, I pretty much just leave all the discs I find where they are and don't return them anymore to avoid confrontations like this. I've left many discs lost since this day that I'm sure people would want back.
Wow. First of all, man, that friend, man, he's loyal. He must have had money on his buddy.
I think he was drunk.
Yeah.
That's what I think. This
was tournament play, right?
No, it's just casual. He's just playing with his buddy.
Okay, so that's crazy. Yeah. So, okay, I was going to say in tournament play, if there were even a thought that a disc could be from a different hole, I wouldn't touch it. I probably wouldn't touch just about anything in tournament play. Unless it was like, it's so obvious it was lost that there was just no way to even think about it. But in casual play, I forgot this. I mean, of course you pick up the disc, like, because who cares? That is like I would have picked it up probably if you were even closer to the other fairway, maybe well, maybe not, but like, I mean, that's just hilarious. Yeah. I mean, this guy's out of his mind. I mean, you literally did the guy a solid. It sounded like he appreciated it. So it's really, here's the issue: is the guy you return his disc, he needed to get his boy.
Yeah, that's the real problem.
What the heck? He needed to, like, you got to call your guy off, be like, hey man, it's good. I'm cool.
I got
with
the
it.
disc back.
I got the disc.
I kind of know where to throw from.
Yeah.
I was OB
like
on top of all of it.
Yeah, like I wasn't. This is the difference between me having the disc and not having it, because I wouldn't have found it. Like, back off. That's really what happened here. Is that guy? He needed to call his boy off. That's
the
ridiculous.
only thing I think you did wrong was
should have fought him.
Was the line very funny, but not kind of escalated the situation of saying you probably shouldn't have thrown such a bad shot. I thought it was lost anyways.
If you're dealing with that kind of irrationalist, you might as well lean into it.
No, but that's how you get yourself.
You should have fought him
anyway.
Yeah, no, you should have fought him. If he was drunk, you could have took him.
I will say, if you would have fought him, this story would have been a little better.
Double leg
just went into
takedown.
Just full fist fight.
Yeah, you should have just got him.
You know what? I take it back. You should have went after him.
That would have made me mad. I'm just thinking about myself in this scenario, and I would have been like, I probably would have looked at his buddy and been like, "Can you like control your friend here? Like, what are we talking about?"
If someone started cussing me out about the disc, I probably was like, "I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I probably should have left it."
I would have walked away.
Been done. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably just walked away.
I'm too terrified of getting into a fist fight.
There's no way that guy was going to catch me.
You never know.
No.
But I had a great
scary speed. Fast was he, though? That is important.
That is true.
You always got to think, how fast is he? Because
could you outrun him?
Because I think it's so funny, like, the idea that some guy tries to come up and fist fight me, but like just is like just a bigger guy that I think I can outrun, and I just like turn on heel and just sprint full speed away, and he just like watches me as like the Road Runner and Wile E. Coyote as I just peel off into the distance, and not that fast either, because I'm not that fast, but just like, oh, didn't expect that to happen. He just ran. Just out of there, off the scene. That's what you should have done. Just get out of there.
Just drop the line of, maybe you shouldn't have thrown such a bad shot. I thought it was lost anyways, and just took off sprinting.
That line to me says this guy got worked up. Like he definitely
he was worked up.
I don't blame him. Like, I don't blame him. This guy was being annoying, but like, to drop a line like that, that's like a line I would have dropped at you probably. I'd have been like, all right.
And you'd have been punched.
Enough is enough. I would have been punched.
No, yeah, definitely though, going forward, that's very rare. I've found many a discs. What I will say, well, no, because they came up and asked you if you lost a disc. But yeah, no, I would pick that disc up 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Like, if you were trying to be like mean or like dishonest, when they asked you if you picked up the disc, you just would have said no and kept it. So like, what in the world are they doing? They must have had a lot on the line for this. Like, what in the world were they? What was going on in that match? That's why
based on the fact that the buddy was just cool with it and was like, "Oh, thanks for getting my disc back," and the other one, I think he was just drunk.
Maybe
they were on the final.
Did you smell his breath? Did you smell his breath?
I could smell it through the story. Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah, you kind of. Yeah, you kind of slurred your words a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. I was hoping that came through.
Okay.
This next topic comes from Connor's biggest fan 1.
That's fun.
The topic doesn't have anything to do with Connor. I think you just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
He's a disc returning etiquette. So just a little heads up, most of these are going to be about lost disc, because Brody wanted to hear lost disc stories, and then Brody's not here. So we get to hear the lost disc stories and lost disc etiquette, and then Brody doesn't.
Take that.
So disc returning etiquette. So about 2 months ago, I found a disc from a local guy that I've returned some discs to before, but this time I messaged him on Facebook as usual, and he asked when I'd be available. I responded back with a question, and then I never got a response back. What do? I feel as if it's not my responsibility to go out of my way to give him the disc back, and I feel as though I did the right thing from the jump and messaged him, but I'm not going to wait around. I like the disc, but I don't need it.
Well, no, I mean, you just hold on to it. Like, if you message the guy, like, maybe you follow up one last time, and then, I mean, just hold on to the disc. Like, don't throw it. Probably, I'd probably just put it on my shelf with my other discs, and if he gets back to you, he gets back to you. Like, it's not your responsibility to be like a cold call on this guy all the time. If he doesn't want it, he's not going to come and get it. Whatever. But like, don't get rid of it.
I would just throw it on my shelf.
Well, I would say statute of limitations, though. I would say if a year goes by and he doesn't get back to you, then that disc is yours, because obviously he didn't care.
Fair.
Statute of limitations.
I would definitely just throw it on. I would definitely just throw it on my shelf behind me. Just put it on the little hides of disc rack back there. Yeah, that's what the whole top row is. Just, these are all stuff I found.
Yeah, he just keeps them.
Not actually, but
acetone.
Yep. I would just throw it on my shelf and just see if he ever responds, and if he hasn't in a long time, then You know,
Sometimes you
do
can
what
just
you
tell from
wish.
the disc that you find too. Like sometimes if you find a disc that's like, okay, let's say I find somebody's, you know, DX leopard, then like they're not really in a rush to get it back. Like you can probably tell it's because like,
It's a
well,
DX leopard.
who cares? They don't care about it that much. But then sometimes you might find a disc where it's like, hey man, you probably want this. Like, should be a little more alert about getting this thing back. Like maybe you want to maybe there's an extra follow up. It's like okay, I used to work at a golf course and we had this rule at the golf course where we were cart boys, so we would find so many things in carts, so many things. And this is actually golf. I think this was actually the golf course's policy. This wasn't even just ours to keep our lost and found from just getting out of control. The policy was if a year went by, like literally an entire year, and something was in the lost and found, we had tried to reach the owners or find them or whatever, then it was up for grabs. Like if you were a cart boy working down there, you could grab it or whatever. And usually the kind of stuff that got turned into our lost and found was head covers, the most common thing. We'd have a collection of golf clubs, but mostly not nice ones, like just random pitching wedges from golfers who didn't really care that much. But one time, a rangefinder came in, and we like it was one of those where most of the time a really nice thing would come in. We'd stare at it for like a few hours. Like, could you imagine if nobody came back to claim that for a year? Because like I worked at this golf course for a few years, and like they would get claimed like the next day. Like a pair of Oakley sunglasses would get left in a cart and somebody would get it the next day. But one time a rangefinder came in and we waited and waited and waited. I actually think I waited 2 years because I was like, I just did not want to take somebody's rangefinder. There's no way to get it back to the owner. Didn't know whose cart it was. Didn't have like a name on it or anything. And then I ended up getting that rangefinder after like 2 years.
Dang.
So
The owner just listened to this
there
podcast
you go.
actually, and
I'm
he's
sorry.
pressing charges. You stole.
I am sorry. I don't know where I could possibly
Sorry
get you
doesn't
another
cover it.
rangefinder. So
Does sorry tell you the yardage out from the hole, Trevor?
it was a decent rangefinder. It wasn't top of the line, but it was a big deal because
Yeah,
like I never had one before. So yeah, it was pretty great. I think I also found like I would find some like other cheaper golf gadgets, but yeah, that was like the holy grail find for me.
that's a
So
good one.
yeah,
I do think like because we, for instance, our lost and found has like I think it's like a 30 or 60-day
yeah.
window where like when stuff gets brought into our shop,
And we got
we
like an
put it
auto
into
text
yeah, we
system.
put it into like an auto text system where it'll text you and then it can text you again and it lets you know like, hey, you got 30 days because we have like right now I probably have 50 or 60 lost and found discs. Like if
Oh,
we
more than
didn't,
that, sitting next to me, there's probably over 100.
yeah, like if we didn't have a 30-day policy thing or
Yeah.
60-day, whatever the policy is, we would have thousands of
Well,
discs
yeah,
at
because
this
think
point.
about it, and we have everyday people come in and pick
People
up
get them
their
all the
lost
time.
disc. The
Yeah.
system is great. A lot of people do care, but like,
We'll even ship them if people like text back and are
yeah,
like,
for
"Hey, I
sure.
live in Delaware. I don't know how you got this disc."
But like discs are inexpensive enough that like a lot of them you're not going to care. You're not especially if you travel to come play one of our courses, you're definitely not going to care, but like even if you're local, if it's the right disc where you're just like, whatever. Like it
Yeah.
was then like you don't really feel like driving out of your way to go pick it up sometimes. That's just the name of the game.
Well,
I
because most of the time, if you lost a disc and you play disc golf frequently enough, if it's been gone for 5 days, you've already replaced it in
It's
your bag.
replaced. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone. It was as good as gone to you. Like you don't like for me, when I lose a disc, I get sad about it for a little bit, but then it immediately turns into excitement when I get back home because it's like, all right, let's start browsing. What's going to
What's
replace
going
this
into bag?
one? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
opportunity.
don't. I. It's very rarely. There's only like a few discs that I will like try to get back. Like even if it means I have to drive like 2 minutes from my house to get back. Like there's very few in my
Yeah,
bag. And the one was like the Big Z Zeus. Someone found that, and I'd lost it like a year ago, and I wanted to get that. But most likely, if someone texts me, I don't even put my number on disc anymore because I flash
same.
it in videos too many times,
Yeah,
where my phone number just starts blowing up. But if someone texts me or it like gets posted in the local club, because like put my signature on top of my disc because identifying mark PDGA.
PGA.
So people like post a picture and ask, and if I see one of my discs gets found, it's instantly just keep it. I don't care.
Yeah,
It'd
either.
have to be something that's been in my bag for a long, long time for me to care enough. Because especially like I'm for instance, my FD3 got gashed up. I put a new FD3 in. It's flippy. So I'm going back to old Firebird USDGC,
Wow, that's a good one.
by going back in my bag. I'm very excited. I have my Luster Firebird going back.
Wait, what
Also,
happened to the Glow FD3?
that's the one that got gashed.
It got
I
gashed.
tried to repair it.
What it
It's
got
on my shelf
gashed
somewhere.
on?
Basket, wasn't it?
Oh,
You remember?
this guy's a basket hunter.
It was during a video.
I vaguely remember that disc was so good.
I showed it off because it just had a huge old gash in
Yeah,
it.
I do remember that.
I don't remember what it was from.
Back to the
I took a match to it, or not match, a lighter to it, and tried to melt it back.
The only time I ever
tried.
tried to melt a disc back, don't listen to this PDGA. The only time I ever tried to do that was in college, and it was with an OG Prodigy H3 that I gassed really bad, and it turned the orange disc black, like it burned it, and it just smelled really bad, and then it just part of the disc just fell off. Did not work at all in the slightest.
Yeah, I just saw my FD3 on my shelf. I can't find it now, but no, it did the same thing. As soon as it just smelled. It just, I don't know what the smell is.
I'm gonna make an entire YouTube video on like disc repair techniques, because like I think we haven't even scratched the surface. I want to see somebody try to fill in their gashes with epoxy.
Oh, that could be something.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see how it works.
We gotta try. I need to try that
brittle.
disc doctor. You know, the like.
Disc doctor is great for removing abrasions. They're not meant to fix gashes.
Oh, I think it's right here.
But like if you have like a sharp or uneven thing, the disc doctor stuff will do a trick. Sandpaper, nail clippers, that sort of thing.
You know, maybe I did a pretty good job. No, there it is. There it is. Audio listeners won't be able to. This webcam's not gonna. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see.
Yeah, it peeled it pretty good. I do remember that.
Yeah, so I tried to burn it back, and I mean, it probably would still fly okay.
It just looks bad at this point.
It just doesn't inspire confidence.
I understand.
You know? Like standing
totally
over the
understand.
lie, I would just be thinking like, what if this flips up now?
There's just certain levels of gashing in a disc where you're like, you just kind of get a look on your face.
Yeah, you just got to get rid of it.
Just leaves bad taste in your mouth. Yeah.
And the other thing, because I'm breaking 68 today. That's
oh my gosh, I forgot. Last attempt.
The other thing is I'm taking the bang zone out to put back in the ESP zone. That's the other thing I'm doing.
You're try harding basically.
Yeah. Well, also my strategy here.
Can you imagine, dude?
I'm running everything. That's the only strategy I haven't tried is just balls to the wall, strategy out the window. We're just going aggressive.
Let's go on, dude.
We're just because here's what I was thinking.
So fired up.
With New London, right now my strategy has been like I'm trying to play for par on a lot of holes and birdie.
And it's not working.
It's not working. And I still can mess up those shots. So if I mess up a shot and I'm already trying to play
mess
safe,
up an aggressive one.
I might as well, because if I'm going aggressive, then I'm gonna execute some of the shots and make up strokes in some places. That's just gonna happen. And then I'm gonna mess up some of the shots. But hopefully the shots I go for and it works out offset the ones I go for and mess up.
There we go.
I feel like it's gonna be a more exciting vibe. You know,
it's gonna be really exciting for a few holes for sure.
Or hopefully for 18 holes. That's the goal.
Hopefully, yeah, I'd say with this strategy, hopefully we can get ourselves out of like hole 5 alive, right?
I feel pretty confident about the first few. But the other thing I started to notice the more I looked at my score, I have to score on the front 9. The front 9's not as hard as I think.
You got to do better.
What's hard is hole 2 and hole 6 on the front 9, but 1,
3, 4,
5, 7, even 8, 9. They're all scoreable to some sense. 8 is probably the only one that I probably can't actually birdie, but the rest 9, of them, like realistically,
you're never birdieing 9 in a million years.
I could. Won't, but I could. But like realistically, I could be like 3 under on the front 9. I could. The back 9,
easy.
I just like keep saying the back 9's easy, but then I shoot like 1 under on the back 9 or even on the back 9. I gotta come out the front 9 hot.
That's right.
That's the plan. This next one's from Jaybird. He said, last year I was playing a local course with a large group and decided to let 2 kids throw through our group. When one of the kids stepped up onto the tee pad, I immediately recognized the disc in his hand. A yellow Legacy Enemy with a 2016 Am World stamp on it.
I have that disc.
I asked him where he got it. Is this you? Am I able to tell a story about you?
No.
I asked him where he got it, and he said that he had found it but didn't see a name. I asked him if I could see to look closer because I thought it might have been mine. And I lost this same disc at the course we were at previous year. He handed it to me and said, it has my name on it. See? I flipped the disc over, and just the word soup is written on the back with a Sharpie. However, you could still see my name and phone number on the disc underneath his name. I told him he probably didn't see my name because he wrote his over it. He gave it back to me without saying anything else, and I still bag my quote-unquote soup disc to this day.
Wow. He tried to finesse you out of that.
Tried to finesse him.
I have a couple of those because That we got some of those whenever Tompkins gave us all those
Yeah, Supreme
discs.
Flight.
It's a good disc, man. You get your hands on any of those enemies that run, it's sick.
Legacy
Um,
makes some good stuff.
oh yeah,
People are
some of the
sleeping
best
on it.
molds ever. They got other issues though. They got other issues. Some of the best
People are
molds.
sleeping on Legacy. They're plastic.
Yeah,
They're honestly, for a long time, they were the closest to Innova, like
yeah.
mold and plastic wise. Their Icon plastic's not close to Star, but Pinnacle's pretty close to
Pinnacle's
Champ.
Pinnacle's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
That's funny that he wrote soup on there. Kids have an interesting humor, don't they? They just like we would like. I feel like when we were in middle school, some kid would write soup on the bottom of his disc. Like this didn't happen, but this would make sense to me, and like we'd all think that was the funniest thing ever. Like, oh my gosh, he wrote soup on his
Really?
disc. Yeah, like soup. Like that's just how humor was
That
when we
could
were
also have been his
young.
nickname because, like, oh, he ate soup once for lunch.
That's a dope. That's a dope
We just
nickname.
called him Soup for the next 5 years.
Okay, you can have a
That's
food
like I
related
got my
nickname.
My nickname was Fish just because my now wife, then just friend, thought that Fisher was the opposite of Hunter, and so the Fisher stuck, and then it got shortened to Fish, and that was my nickname. Her family still calls me that. Nicknames
That's
are funny. Like how does
nicknames
that
are funny.
stick? Like how does that stick of all things?
I don't know. We
This
just
next one,
we just chuck nicknames around in this office,
we
and
do.
usually they're not
Trev
creative
Daddy.
at all. Usually it's like Big Hunt, Big Con, Big Psy. We just throw big in front of anything.
No, Psy guy. Silas
Psy-
Giles Dilus.
Silas Giles Dilus. Yeah,
That one will always stick.
that'll always be
Psy
there.
guy dies. Well, man, we need to get Silas. You need to die some more discs. I know you don't have a mic on you right now, but we need to get back to that.
He's not
Jacob
going to do it
said-
anymore. He lost the passion.
Dang, man, I'll get you a passion. Would that help? Jacob said, what would you guys think of the Pro Tour adapting something close to traditional golf out of bounds rules, where all quote unquote out of bounds shots would take stroke and distance penalty, but then there are other quote unquote hazard areas where you drop and play from where you went out of bounds like we do currently? I think it would be easy to make the tour at least somewhat harder without having to completely redesign courses that are now getting outgrown on tour.
I think that they should write it into the PDGA rules. They would have to call it something different. Like I don't know what you would call it. Maybe you would call it, I don't know, whatever you would call the zone. You'd have to call it something different because I think that you cannot make all OB that. The pace of play would be just absolutely hilarious. Like it would be so bad you couldn't even believe it. But I do think on certain holes that it would be warranted. Like I think it would be cool to be able to do that on certain holes so that we could add a little suspense to them. But I think you have to pick and choose because you can't do it on all of them. So I think it'd be cool if they wrote it into the rules at least so that there's an option now that course designers can do it, but they just have to be careful about where they put it so that you just don't have an absolute mess.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be twofold. I think first it would need to be a Pro Tour only rule, which the
C tier
PDGA kind
people
of
would
like
lose their
made
minds.
made that possible because like C tiers and stuff, you don't want that ish. So I think it would definitely be Pro Tour only rule, and then in my head there'd be 3 OBs. So I think you would have stroke and distance be 1, and you'd have OB typical how we play, drop it where it went out, and then hazard how we play, where you play it from where it lies with a stroke penalty. But I think if you allow all
I think they
3
can all
to
exist.
exist, then course designers can really get creative of when they use what, to where, maybe Idlewild, that wide open hole, people can go for eagle, right? The par 5, like is up over the hill and then goes down to the green. You can attack the green in 2. This might make the hole worse, but it could make it better. What if like the fields stayed OB as they were, and then you made attacking the green be stroke and distance? So, then if you're in a spot where you can't attack the green, you're welcome to take the aggressiveness, but then you still have to throw from middle of that fairway. That might have been a bad example, but something like that where like now an island green can be at the end of a par 4 and have some repercussions where like there can be big swings late in the round final day. Because someone can try to go for it to be aggressive, or like try to even a layup rolls into it. Now they have to re-execute a 200-foot layup shot. Like I think that giving course designers a little bit more tools to use for the Pro Tour is always a good thing. And hazard, I think, should be used a lot more because sometimes there's some holes where you don't want someone who goes OB by 2 feet and someone who goes OB by 150 feet to be penalized the exact same because one person threw a much better bad shot than the other person. They both are OB, but then at least the person who threw 150 feet OB now has to still recover from how bad their shot was versus the person who barely went OB.
Right.
That doesn't work on every hole. So that's why I think there should be 3 levels of OB. But
I think
stroke and
it,
distance, I think definitely should come back.
well, at the very least, like they should, like USDGC on a few holes, they utilize drop, like within the rules, we are allowed to take OB straight to a drop zone. And most people just put that drop zone like 50 feet away from the basket. But I think the happy, like if we don't have stroke and distance, what we can do is like, okay, that we know that the green is well, let's say it works best on a par four, but it could be a long par three as well. Where, okay, we have a really well protected green with OB. So if you throw your drive, your first shot out of bounds, you go straight to a drop zone that's still approaching into that green. So you move up a little bit. It helps pace the play a little bit, but it's like hole 10 at USDGC where the OB rule is you go to the drop zone. And that way you still have to execute another shot. It still feels like it's punishing you stroke and distance, but you get a little bit of a boost just so that we're not taking forever on the tee. I
Yeah.
think that could utilize that. That could be utilized way more than it is. But I think courses are in. It's so stressful trying to make your course not the slowest course ever because everybody plays so slow. That's the root of the issue.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of other stuff to fix, I think, pace of play wise before we do stuff. But I mean, and one of them I think should just be threesomes. But I know a big part with that is just we would lose how many people we can cover,
Yeah.
tournament wise or footage wise. This next one's from Anthony Milanazzo. He said, "Do you guys think it would be possible for once a year there to be a pro level collegiate doubles format tournament? All the manufacturers can pay the entry fee for their teams. It would add that team part that Brody says is missing. I agree. I think it's an interesting concept. Would love to get your thoughts."
Um. Well, the whole exhibition thing in disc golf is an interesting topic because they've tried they've tried it in a number of ways now. They've tried it with the All Star event, which in my opinion has more or less been kind of a flop. Doesn't help when you put it on the same day as the Super Bowl. But I'm just saying, like, people don't necessarily flock to watch that. It's cool because it's like the first disc golf we get to see, but I feel like most people just kind of tune in for the first pro tour of the year. And then they've also tried it with the match play championships. I think those kind of fell flat. Some people didn't show up to them. Like, I don't know, it just wasn't quite there. And then they do it with the President's Cup as well. That event's got a lot more history, but I still feel like that event isn't as big as it probably should be. So I think disc golf has struggled so far, which is so odd to me because like there's so many disc golfers I think that are, well, I think it is twofold because I think there are a lot of disc golfers who are infatuated with like fun disc golf formats, but for some reason, a large percentage of people that consume disc golf, they just want like the meat and potatoes 18 holes of disc golf, which is fine. But I'm just saying, like, up until this point, they've had a difficult time making like more exhibition-y stuff work and be like super popular. So something like this, I don't know if people would get super behind it. I don't think it'd be a bad idea because disc golf fans are super brand loyal. So one thing they haven't ever tried to do is this, where like we like pit manufacturers against each other. And I would watch it. I mean, that sounds like here's where this would be fun, right? It'd be like, oh, like I think each manufacturer would get one team of I think 2 men and 2 women, and I think that would be collegiate doubles. And the fascinating thing would be like, who's going to make team discraft? Like they've got so many guys. Like who are they going to choose? Like there'd be politics. I actually would watch this. I think it'd be super fun, and I would love to talk about it. And then let's say if the event gets big enough that people really care about it, there's money on the line, then it just adds a little more fire to the idea of these off-season moves. Because I was thinking about this the other day, like how much we obsess over off-season moves. And I was like, it's so funny that we do that because like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it matters in the retail world a lot, but like, you know, they're still playing disc golf. It's just funny that we obsess over, but it's like we're just looking for something, right? Like we're just like disc golf fans. We need some action because the off season, everybody just kind of goes radio silent, and it's just kind of fun to see. So I think actually because of the way people react to like off season movement, they tie a lot of interest into manufacturer stuff. So like I think making a manufacturer's cup, like it probably would do numbers. Honestly, I'd watch it.
Does I have a different thought on it, but does golf exhibition matches, like, surely they don't get as many views as normal like
Well, it
PGA
just
Tour stuff,
depends.
right?
Uh,
Obviously, like not like the match when you have
no,
outside celebrities, but I'm saying just like
well, no, like the match play, the Dell match play championships that existed for quite a while, like people really liked that event. And obviously we know the Ryder Cup, how big that is. Like that's a huge deal. Um, like they haven't leaned into it super heavy. Like that's not something they go to super often, but they've had some success with little ones.
Bison knows it. Is it like a proportional thing? Like, is the reason it feels so small in disc golf because like our viewership overall is so small?
No,
Because if you
no,
have multiple
I
million views on a normal PGA Tour event and then 1 million, it's still a very big event.
I think it's honestly just more confusing in disc golf because I feel like disc golf would be actually be more receptive to that sort of thing. And no, golf, I mean, there's success when they do things like that. And especially in these days, there's a lot more younger golf fans. I feel like in the last couple of years have kind of boomed in. Um, so golf is like actively trying to set up more of that stuff. I mean, they're trying to run this like indoor golf, like nightly thing that Tiger Woods kind of put on. Um,
The dome collapsed.
it
Had to
dome
push it back.
collapsed. Yeah, pushed it back a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, no, but like they've had successful events like this. It's just not something that they necessarily lean into a ton.
So I definitely think that there should be a manufacturer cup of some type. I used to be against it, but um, it's so true. Like my bag just if I don't pay attention, I'm not intentional. My bag just turns all Innova. Like I just am an Innova simp. But I think it'd be very fun to the team aspect of like drafting four guys and let's say it's four men, four women. Like that aspect of if it became a big enough deal where it's just one big event, um, and the players care, manufacturers care. Only way to get that to happen is money, basically. But if it became a like big enough event where like people are rooting for it, then that could be like a negotiation thing. If I'm Chris Dickerson and I get bumped off of Discraft's team for this manufacturer cup, and then when I'm like my contract's up and I'm negotiating with
They'll be like,
Innova,
we guarantee you 2
yeah,
years on
in the
on the
contract, it's
team.
like, hey, we guarantee you 2 years
I
on
love
this team. You
that.
know what I'm saying? Like,
That's funny. It's totally like the F1 model almost. That's pretty funny.
but I don't know. I like the idea of it just being an exhibition event. Obviously, disc golf will never be a full team event, but I think it would just kind of help that, and it would be fascinating, like the drafting process. Like you have a captain, and the captain's like just like we do for President's
Yeah.
Cup. But I think as funny as it is it's going to sound, I think people would care more about manufacturers facing off than USA versus Europe.
Yeah.
I think it would.
Yeah.
There's almost more loyalty, I think, to Discraft and Innova than USA versus Europe. It's like
Yeah, I
I just
agree.
I just think
Dude,
that's what it comes down to.
it would be really funny. It would just be like a fun thing for everybody to kind of get behind their favorite manufacturers and like watch that happen on. So like which team are you supporting? Like and they could sell the
Sell Team
merch.
Prodigy merch.
Sell like I'm supporting Team Prodigy or Team Discraft, whatever. It'd be pretty fun. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, because like, yeah, I'm not one of those people that's sitting here acting like disc golf is a team sport and that's like the future. No, of course it's not. This is more so like, what is something we could get eyeballs on and it would be fun and could generate a lot of buzz and like
The key behind it would
spur
be
the
the
economy
marketing.
of disc golf. Yeah.
It would all be the marketing
Oh
because I
yeah.
think there's some events that people would have a blast watching that I think the marketing is what falls it short.
Yeah.
Like
Well, the President's Cup gets hit the most because it's so early in the morning.
yeah, that's a different thing
That
because I think the
that kills
marketing
it.
there is good, but
It's fine.
some of these exhibition events we also have to stick to it. Like you can't,
Yeah.
nothing's gonna have a name the first year you throw it out there. So like we had that Discmania match play thing, and then it just is gone. It just didn't happen
Yeah.
again. Like it's not just we're not gonna have one pop up and then it's immediately a home run. The reason people care about the Ryder Cup is it's been going on for so freaking long, and there's like
Mhm.
history. History is what makes people care about stuff. So I
Yep.
think that like we gotta pick our exhibition events and then just ride with it. No, like the All Star event, no one cares right now, but eventually people will care more and more. Like it will happen.
I don't know. That's kind of gone in the other direction in every other sport. They've started caring less and less and less about all-star games.
Yeah, but I don't. There was a peak interest at some point,
There was,
and like
and it was mostly when they were doing like, it was mostly when the players cared. That's kind of the thing about the all-star thing.
well, yeah, I think the NBA, they just kind of started ruining the dunk contest, and then
Yeah.
I can't stand. I want it to be East versus West again, which I think they're bringing that back this year. I actually heard,
Are they?
because like that was the prime thing was when it was East versus
Team
West, and
LeBron
like
versus Team Giannis or
yeah, I
whatever.
don't like when it's just like draft and play a pickup game. That just is dumb. That just sucks.
I think it's just because they got more like pop and interaction out of the drafting process than they were getting out of the entire All-Star game.
Yeah, I just
They
know
needed something.
when I was in like elementary school, and
Yeah, it was a
because
thing.
it was just cool to see like
You know what they need to bring back for
you
All-Star
you
games?
had
They need
you
to
would
bring
just have
back.
like mashups with the East and the West of like players getting to play. I think actually now that I'm thinking about the NBA, what ruined it is super teams, the big
Yeah,
three, big four, because
because
like
you already see the best players play
I've already
together.
seen Kevin Durant play with Kyrie Irving and James Harden. Like I've
Yeah,
seen that. I don't
that's a
care.
good point. I think they need to bring it back where I want to see them wear their own team's jerseys again, but you all wear like
That
the
was
white
fun too.
jerseys.
That was fun
Yeah.
too.
And even like they can even like add a little bit of flair to them. But like I thought it was always cool when you saw them all wearing like their individual jerseys, but just this like the
They
white
still
or
do
dark
that in the
colors.
rookie sophomore game or whatever they call it, don't
Do
they?
they? I don't know.
Maybe they don't.
I
Maybe they
don't
don't.
know. Who
Doesn't
watches
matter. But
that?
final thing I was gonna say was the collegiate doubles. What I think they should do, because growing college disc golf is a good thing for the sport. It's important overall for the sport, and I think it's something that the Pro Tour. This could be an easy way for the Pro Tour to kind of like help get more eyes on college disc golf. Is I think that it should be a collaborative effort scheduling wise, and figure out a way to get a rotating, so it's not always the same, but 4 pros. They used to do this back in the day when I was like first in college, but get a few pros out to college disc golf nationals every year, and then what would happen back then, I think it should be brought back and DGN should cover it or someone should cover it, is the college national champ basically immediately after the award ceremony or however you want to schedule it gets to play a like 9-hole exhibition collegiate doubles against the all-star pro team. So you have the 4
Oh, that's
pros
fun.
playing against the college national champs. That used to happen, and it was like everyone would stay because you had like it was like Big Germ, Ricky, Paul, and someone else. And they were
Dang.
playing
How do they swing that?
Georgia. They're playing Dustin Perry's team, Georgia, Augusta, I think, because it was Dustin Perry, John Baker,
Did they
and I
win?
forget what the other guy was. No, there's just a few holes, but it was just electric because like you got to. What was cool for me was I hadn't really been to. I'd been to like USDGC once, but I hadn't really been to many pro tournaments, so I hadn't got to see like pros play on courses I knew yet. And so you just played your heart out on these college national courses, and then I got to watch Ricky dissect a like 300 some foot hole with a forehand harp that I was throwing a like flip up distance driver backhand on all week. And it just like really put things into perspective. So it was really cool college wise. It was like a nice little added benefit.
Mhm.
But then on the flip side, I think that'd be a cool thing to like grow college disc golf because there wouldn't be a huge interest in it. It would be a net loss money wise for the DGN. It would just be like a good faith of like helping grow and expose college disc golf, because then you'd at least get people to see there is a college disc golf scene going on, see the college disc golf format, and then at least get to display talent, because like there's a lot of really good pros that have come out of college disc golf. And
It's
so
true.
chances are, if you showcase the college national champs every year, you're gonna be showing people, and then over years you can be like, oh, here's the clip back when you know James Proctor, he's a former college national champion. Here's when James Proctor was playing against Paul and all these other guys like that. You know what I'm saying? I think that'd be fun. So that's a long answer to that guy's question. Next question comes from Dexter Starr. He said, what is the distance capacity for professional disc golfers' stock shots? Will we ever see 600-foot par threes? Will one player grow to have a massive advantage over other players through distance alone?
Mm. Like, what's the capacity of how far they should make
I'm
holes?
thinking he's saying just like, what is how far someone could like throw accurately, like a realistic estimate.
550 feet, maybe more like it's the thing about people have misconceptions about pro distance because like you see guys throw huge. The difference between a stock shot and a distance shot is so crazy. Like you don't understand. Like my difference between if I just throw a stock distance driver shot where I'm not really trying to even pump it, like just like an accurate stock shot, it might only go like 380 feet. My max distance shot is closer to 500 feet. Like there's a huge gap, and that multiplies as you get better at disc golf and you throw further. So like Anthony Barella his stock distance driver probably only goes like 470, 480, but he could probably throw a disc. I know he can over 700 feet. So like that gap is really big. So if you're talking about flat ground, like, and just pure distance, a par three on flat ground, like I know there are longer ones on tour, but just keep in mind I'm saying flat ground, then really that par three should never be any longer than, and it depends on the obstacles too. Like if it was wide open, you basically can ask them to throw more of a distance shot, and then maybe you can push it closer to 500. But if it's a shot that requires some accuracy and it's on flat ground, it really shouldn't be more than 450. Like realistically, like that's a pump. Like that's a pump. And if they have to also hit a line and it's flat ground, like as soon, the other thing people don't realize about disc golf distance though is as soon as you add even a little bit of downhill, it makes you be able to throw so much further. Like you just add 20, 30 feet of downhill, that disc is going to stay in the air much longer than just that additional 20, 30 feet. Like that's why you see these par threes on tour. Like if you see a par three on tour that's 480 feet and guys are just like ripping it there and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys are so insane. Like they throw so far. Chances are it's a little bit downhill and like it's not as hard as you think. Now, granted, yes, they still throw very far. They're still touring players, but like sometimes distances in disc golf are so hard to perceive because elevation is such a big part of our game that very rarely do you walk up to a hole and it just plays how it plays, because you also have, oh, well, this shot plays for a hyzer. Well, then it's gonna play a lot short or play a lot longer than if I was able to throw a flip up to turn shot. Like there's so much nuance to that like you can never just look at a T sign and be like, this works. The only real way to figure it out is to actually have people throw the shot and just decide, okay, is this reachable? Or is it like, I'm going to have to throw this disc as hard as I can and get lucky to get there? So it's tough to put a number on it. But like I said, if we're talking about flat ground with just like normal obstacles, like you really shouldn't ever get over 500 feet on a par three.
What I think is interesting is like let's say that there's a 475-foot flat ground par three, and however it shapes up, it's asking players to throw a like pushing hyzer or a flat to hyzer shot. I feel like a lot of guys are going fairway driver on that. Because like I've seen Paul throw his Onyx consistently that far. I've seen Brody throw Raptors that far. I've seen AB rip Thunderbirds. Obviously now he's with Discraft. But I think that like that's the other interesting thing is that doesn't mean that their distance driver is going 530.
Correct.
Because
If
I
they throw
think
the distance driver from fairway on the same exact line, you might get 30 to 40 feet maximum.
yeah, well, because
Like maximum.
I think where distance drivers come in is like if we had a 500 some foot wide open par three, and now I have to flex it a little bit or I need more
Right.
movement, they go distance. But when it's like I need a line and I need it to just like go and then fade a little bit, then they need just that consistency.
Yeah.
And they're willing to sacrifice 20 feet because on the putting green, being 10 feet long, or if I go fairway, I'm gonna be 30 feet shorter and have a 20-footer.
Yeah.
They're doing that all day because they're way more consistent releasing
Totally.
a 9 speed than a 13 speed. And I
That's
think
the other
that
big
also
misconception.
is a big misconception distance wise, is like just because a pro throws a fairway driver 470 feet, that doesn't mean that he has 550 feet of stock hyzer distance. It just means the gap between his 9 speed and his 13 speed isn't that drastic because they're just not. They're not
People
that drastic.
forget that like beveled edge discs like only have so much gapping between them. Like a guy throws a mid range 400 feet on tour and people like lose their mind. It's like, yeah. And like my mid range max distance is probably like 380. And my distance driver, or like if I'm throwing a fairway on that same distance, it might go for like 410, 415. Like the gapping is way smaller than people think. So when like pros are just smart enough that they know, let's throw the fattest disc I can. Essentially, if I'm looking for a disc to be straight and not do anything crazy on the ground, I want to throw the slowest disc possible. So they push him out there like that. And yeah, people don't realize that like the gapping between your putter, if you're a good disc golfer, the gapper between your putter and your fastest disc on your stock lines is going to be like probably less than 100 feet.
Yeah, it's
Like
probably like
that's
100 some, 150.
like,
I
that's
don't
just how
I
it is.
suck at throwing putters. So my putter, I'm just reaching for a mid before, but my mids, I'm very comfortable if I see a 360 to 380 foot hole, depending on the hole, obviously. But flat ground or in a field, if you handed me an MD3 and you said throw it 370, I feel pretty comfortable that I could do that every time. If you handed me a fairway driver and told me throw it 425, I can't do that every time. But a
Yeah.
fairway driver, I can probably get to like 390, 400, and I feel like I can get a distance driver to like 420 every
Yeah.
time. But that's crazy because the difference from a 5-speed to a 12-speed in my bag that I just described for stock, just throw it out there, consistently get it there, that's only like 70 feet, 50
Yeah,
feet.
it's not as
Like, it's
drastic as
not
people
that
think.
drastic. Now,
And
if you're like crushes as far as you can, a mid's only going to get to like 400,
yeah,
absolute max for me. I tried my hardest. I think I got like
yeah, I'd say
395.
that's the
But a
weird
distance
thing.
driver, I could get to like 475. So
Yeah,
like, I
that's
think
the
it's the
weird
distance
thing.
cap. But like, if I'm
Right.
going consistent, then I can. It's almost like my mid range just put air brakes on at like
Yeah, no,
390.
it's
Like, you just can't
literally
get past it.
certain discs. That is the one thing about the thinner discs is they obviously they cut through the air better, and so it has less to do with that initial push of distance. It has more to do with when the disc starts to slow down. And you watch it like Hunter can throw a mid range 360, 370 pretty easily. But if he tries to get even 25, 30 more feet, it gets impossible
Yeah,
because that
it
disc
just
just slows
stops.
down. It just stops.
It
It's
doesn't
the
make
same
sense,
thing.
but it's true.
Yeah, it's the same thing with putter. If you ask me, I throw putters pretty well. If you ask me to throw a putter 250, I'm doing that instantly. But if I got to throw it 300 plus, you get it right around 300, and all of a sudden it gets really tough to push too much further past
Yeah.
300. Like now it takes like a ton of effort. That's how those discs work. But yeah, so placing a number on like capping a hole, it's impossible. It's like a case by case.
Yeah, it depends all on the whole. All right, we're gonna wrap it up with 2 stories here. Just because I liked them both. First
Okay.
one was from Patrick Brickley. He said, "I used to own a 2003 first run champion rock from USDGC, not knowing anything about the value of the disc. It was one of my
Expensive.
number one throwers, and as are all the discs in my bag, I mark them with a big quarter wedge on my disc with my name and number, of course. One day I lost that disc when I was out of town in Richmond, Virginia, and skip forward a few years while I'm living in LA, California. A lot of my friends
Huh.
start sending me messages that they see my disc for sale on eBay. So I contacted the owner, who had a crazy story about his son finding the greatest treasure ever out on the disc golf course. Didn't say where he found it, but these people lived in Ohio at the time, if I remember correctly. So I told him it was definitely my disc. It clearly had my blue wedge on it and my name, Patrick Brickley. My phone number was somehow wiped off, and he replies and said, multiple people have contacted him saying that they are Patrick Brickley, and he does not believe me. So I start sending him pictures of every disc I own with the wedge up the same with my name and
That's
number
pretty
on it.
convincing.
Not knowing what to do, I went on Facebook at the time and I asked Collector Group if anyone's been in this situation before. And a lot of people started message bombing the guy, telling him he was doing the wrong thing. The disc was obviously mine. He contacts me back a few days later saying he's sorry and he would like to get at least $40 for it, finder's fee. So I sent him the $40 and then he straight ghosted me. Still to this
Oh,
day, I've not seen the disc or heard back or know how to get a hold of the guy. It's such
doubled
a
'em
rare
up.
disc, especially with my name and wedge on it. It wouldn't surprise me if someone out there knows where it's at today. So
think
that it's almost a call to action. If you know where this thing's at,
we
let's
gotta
get it
track
back
this
to
guy down.
Patrick.
If you, I think if you ask for a finder's fee, like you're probably already going to do the wrong thing. Like you probably
Yeah.
shouldn't trust that guy. Finder's fee? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How many years did he say later? Did he say it was years later?
It was he did a few years. He
See,
didn't
this
say
is
how
why.
many.
Here's why I think we need to agree on a statute of limitations, like just globally on the disc golf community.
But he
'Cause-
hadn't. No one had texted him or anything. Like, this is the first he sees this disc, so
Yeah.
it's completely different than if someone texted him and he didn't respond for.
That
a
is
few
true.
years.
That is true. That is true. There has to be a text. There
Yeah,
has
like
to be a text.
he had no idea that anyone
That's a
had
good
found
point.
this thing. It'd
That's a
been
good
years
point.
and he just saw it on eBay.
That's brutal.
Yeah, hopefully I think finder's fees, man, that's so tough because like first off, finder's fee, instant
Paying for
scumbag.
shipping, absolutely.
Shipping's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finder's fee, $40. It's not costing $40 ship from Ohio
Yeah,
to California. It
That's
costs $4.
hilarious. Like, no, I'm not paying a fine fee.
But what sucks is like you almost have to do that through like Facebook or something, where like
Yeah.
if you don't get your item, you can at least get your money back. Because now, and I think you might be able to do that through PayPal, depending on unless you did it friends and family. But that's why it's important to like send when you're sending money to someone you don't know disc golf wise, send it through something that has you
Backs
covered.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it means like, okay, I'm sending you $40, I'm gonna send it goods and services, and I'll
Wonder
just
if-
pay an extra few bucks to cover that percentage it's gonna take from you to make sure
Yeah.
if I don't get it, I can file a claim with them. Because
I
then,
wonder if anybody's selling this rock right now.
in the end of the day, if that would have happened, you'd have got his PayPal account flagged, and then it would have stopped him from selling anymore.
Good
where
point.
he can't use PayPal anymore, or however else you sent it. So it's important.
I'm gonna
There's a
see it.
lesson in this.
I wonder if anybody is selling.
2003 first run champ rock from USDGC.
Yeah, here's one right here. This
Go for it.
one, yeah, these it was like one of the one division one champion stands. $150. This one's
Okay.
that one's brand new. I'm just saying, like, yeah, like there are a few Innova discs that still really draw. That's the only one I'm seeing though. It's very rare.
Does it say Patrick Brickley on it?
No, it looks brand new. I would have laughed so hard though. Oh my
If you would have
gosh.
found it on eBay,
Yeah.
we would have just bought it and sent it to him.
Oh, absolutely.
Completely Corey comes our last story. Shout out debate night, Corey. He said, "We all lost this that day." It's the title of this story.
Oh.
Recently, I played my local course, Cass Benton. It was the pinnacle of autumn disc golf, so all the leaves were freshly in giant layers on the ground. The course is pretty evenly open and wooded, but the woods up till hole 14 were nothing compared to that hole. I walked up to 14 and noticed there's a large group wandering around in the middle of the fairway. The hole's a 412-foot turnover shot that you throw up onto a hill, so losing sight of your disc is common. I asked what color they were looking for, and the kid explains metal flake blue. They got a tree kick and somewhere's under about a foot of leaves. After helping for about 10 minutes, he tells me just to play through, so I run back down to throw. Perfect angle of a turnover shot is ripped out of my hand until it kicks off a tree and darts straight at hole 17's basket. I swear it was 3 feet from black acing. I run up to the basket. I see no disc. 17, which is left of 14, running towards this tee pad, is even more covered in leaves than 14. Almost looks like they took all the leaves on the property and dumped them right there. So I started sweeping around my feet, and after a good 15 minutes, a disc appears. Not my disc, and not even the other kid's disc, but a literal leaf-colored sole. Confused at the fact that I foxy that I found a purple brown, don't know what he means there, but confused at the fact that he found a purple brown disc before his bright yellow one, he threw it in his bag to call after the round and continue to play. He finished his next few holes and get to 17. Once he putts out, he looks again for a few before 18, nothing. He ended the round, called the number in the soul to a quote-unquote Luke, who hasn't owned that disc in forever. He lives about an hour and a half from the course, gave it to his friend months before. He texts his buddy to meet me. So I decided to look a third time on 17 in the meantime. 20 minutes later, I get a text saying, I'm in the parking lot, and I still can't find my disc. So I lost all hope until a group that was playing 17 asked what I lost. After explaining, a guy points and goes, "Oh, you mean that one?" And I look over to a giant hole in the pile of leaves with a bright yellow disc right in the center. The guy could feel the energy in my excitement and shared a bro hug with me. Oh, and the guy on 14 found his blue disc as well. 3 discs lost, 3 discs found. Moral of the story, no clue. Get a spotter.
No clue. Leaves are the worst. Leaves are the worst.
Leaves suck.
Like leaves are like normally when you throw a disc any other time of the year and like it's on a hole that's like semi-blind, you just don't quite see it. Like you kind of know, like you're like, okay, we're gonna find it. Like we know where it should be. It should be in this area. We're gonna find it. If there's leaves involved, you kind of walk up, and if you didn't see exactly where running, you're like, yeah, it's gone. Like you just kind of know already. You're like, you just know you're not gonna find it unless you're carrying around a leaf blower. Like you're not gonna find that disc. It's gone. Good news is sometimes they show up in the spring.
One of my worst leaf experiences ever was we had the collegiate tournament we played at Liberty. It was called the Flamethrower, and both of the Liberty's courses have some decent woods on them, very leafy woods. And we showed up to Camp Hideaway to play, and our coach was trying to be nice and like have the course look as ready for the tournament as humanly possible, which means that the day before the tournament, he decided to take his backpack leaf blower out and blow all the fairways.
Oh my gosh.
The course looked great.
Until you were in the rough.
Except for the fact that as soon as you got to the edge of the rough, it was about a 4-foot tall pile of leaves everywhere. And it was on both courses.
That's where I literally lost one of my discs and then found it in the spring. It came back to me in the spring.
It sucked. Every single hole was like, everyone would throw their shots, we'd watch them, and then you just see someone slide just barely off the fairway, and it was just in 4 feet of leaves. And so it was the longest round ever because we were just kicking every hole. We were just kicking leaves. And so it came and like told coach, and he's like, I didn't even think about that. Like I was just trying to get the fairways to like look clear so that when people can play the course, I was like, the course looked great. Played awful. Played terrible.
Yeah.
It was miserable out there.
You need those leaves to be as evenly settled as possible. It's your only hope.
If you're going to clear fairways, you just got to trash bag the leaves up and take them out with you.
It's true. And nobody wants to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Disaster. Well, there you have it. That's this week's Offseason podcast. If you have some funny stories, some topics you want to hear us discuss, or just random questions, feel free to submit them through the link below. we still have a ton to get through from people who've already submitted. So if you submitted and you haven't heard your question, unfortunately, you just might never. But I try to go back through all the old ones each week and just kind of like scrounge around and find new stories and stuff, so that we're not only using the most recent ones, but you can always just resubmit it. Maybe there's a chance I just overlooked it. So submit your questions, your topics, your stories. The funnier, the better. The crazier, the better. If you've ever gotten to a fist fight or almost a fist fight on the disc golf course, that will almost guarantee.
Stories. Let's try to get some stories next week about like fights or super angry card mates, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
That's always entertaining. So other than that, we'll see you back here on Thursday next week. Same time, same place.